I make music. Cause I don't know what the fuck else to do with myself, honestly. I mean, it's like whether or not this album is like significant or pays off or whatever, like it's always gonna be on to the next project, you know, just on to the next album, cause I don't really know how else to like deal with life, honestly, other than just making music. And it would be nice, it would be so cool if that's all I had to do, you know, if I didn't have to get up and fucking go wash dishes and deal with that bullshit. You live so long with this sort of like emotional hole, and then and also being alone doesn't help, and then your brain starts to think of all these crazy ways you could compensate for that emotional hole, and then it kind of sticks with you, you know. So I've had these like grandiose rock star fantasies my whole life, you know, as a way to like escape where I'm at, you know. And I don't think it would really be that fulfilling once I got there, because then it's like, where do you go, you know? The whole point of the fantasy is to have somewhere to go. Then you're in the fantasy and now you have nowhere to go anymore. No, I just feel like Minnesota is an oppressing place to be, you know, just like the mood of it. I don't know, I just feel very lazy and sad here. You know, it's just always cold and like everyone's passive aggressive and in a shitty mood all the time. I don't know. There's very little reward for the relentless work that goes into like trying to be a musician, but that's not really the point, at least not for me. There's not a ton of momentum, it doesn't seem, here. There's like pockets of momentum, and you know, they're close with them, and they're close with them, and they're close with them, and they're close with them, you know. But people don't really fuck with each other in Minnesota, you know. It's kind of hard to, I mean, it takes a long time to make connections here, because people don't really fuck with other people that much. I don't know, everyone's fake to a degree, aren't they? I think everyone has sort of a persona that they walk around with to keep themselves safe, you know? Might as well move somewhere, but I don't know, I'm just gonna be starting from scratch, I guess, in a lot of things. But you know what, just being in California would be a step, you know, even if I have to like drive 6 hours to get to the major shit, to get to gigs, whatever, it's like, it's a start. It's cool when these musicians like get up at 7, go to work, and then like they can go to shows every night, you know. I don't get that luxury with working in venues or dishwashing, which is like, or like working in kitchens. That's the shit I've been doing for like the last 3 years. I mean, the first tour is gonna be a milestone, you know. I don't know exactly how to make that happen, but I'm hoping, I'm trying to just like get the music at a point where it like sells itself, you know what I mean? Obviously there's like, you gotta keep selling it, you gotta keep pushing it, you gotta keep sharing it, but I don't know, I do feel like mastering the craft is the first sort of priority, you know. I'll figure it out, you know. I had a horrible trip on acid my first time doing acid. Yeah, that was bad. I was tripping with in the last spot that we lived at, which was in Elliott Park, and I just lost it. And part of it too was like I went into my room after that, and like just seeing my room, seeing like all my shit laid out, I was like sleeping on the floor, and and there was like roaches everywhere. Like, it was just like a depressing scene, and I just saw my depression like staring back at me when I walked in that room, and it freaked me the fuck out, and I had a breakdown, and I was just sobbing and shit. When me left the apartment, he said to me, what if we never left the apartment and we're just imagining all of this? And when he said that, like straight up, like, this is me, this is the sidewalk went, I just saw black. I just saw an abyss. And I grabbed him by the shoulders and I said, we're all here. We're right here, right now. And the sidewalk just flipped back to my feet right like that. That's like, I realized in that moment like how fragile your idea of what's real or what's possible, or, you know, it just kind of like broke the matrix for me, you could say. You know, I mean, I know that sounds so lame and douchey, and that's not like I literally think the sidewalk went like that, but I felt that so vividly, you know. It's like I saw the wallpaper of life kind of peel away for a sec, and it went holy fuck, you know. I think there is a deeper, more vast existential abyss, you could say, that everything's sort of like operating within, and I don't know, I guess I just realized that it doesn't really take much to like poke a hole in that, you know. I was like getting into lucid dreaming for a while, and part of lucid dreaming is like, you know, checking to make sure you're not asleep. But like, what if you were awake one time and your finger really did go through, you know? Then what? And you try to wake yourself up, but there's nothing to wake up from. That's just where you are now, you know? And everything's different, you know? The people around you are different. All the relationships you've cultivated are gone, you know? Whatever, you know? Like, who the fuck knows? I don't know, I'm probably not going to change that much, honestly. Because right now I definitely wash more dishes than I make music, you know, and that's just like the unfortunate fact of having to get by. I do want it. I mean, I wouldn't be doing all this work if I didn't want it. I want it so desperately I can taste it every fucking day, you know? And that's what I'm saying, like this wanting to break out, you know? I just want to get the fuck out of this shit, you know? I'm so sick of busting ass all the time for nothing. Well, like from what I've heard, people in LA are much more outgoing, you know, and they're like trying to connect with people, and that the scene is like, there's a lot going on. There's tons of people involved, tons of shows involved, tons of music, you know, it's just different here, you know. At least I think it's different here. But also, like, I want to build my life around this music shit, and I think I gotta go somewhere else in order to be able to do that. I just don't think that's gonna happen here. I've never really, like, loved being in Minneapolis, loved being in Minnesota. I'm not, like, incredibly fond of this place, to be real. I'm just not happy, you know? I'm so not happy, and I feel maybe if I just, like, maybe if I had less, maybe if my existence was a little more bare bones, then maybe I would appreciate life a little bit more. I don't know. Oh, 5 years ago I was living with my mom in school, and like I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, you know? And I like couldn't even save up enough money to move out. You know, having millions of dollars wouldn't hurt, would it? Shit. I'd be able to eat every goddamn day. 3 square meals, that'd be pretty nice. I've been enjoying this whole non-monogamous friends with benefits sort of thing that I've been trying out. I want to dedicate all my time and energy and thought to music, and then I meet somebody and then I want to dedicate all that energy to them, but I just feel like I'm being pulled away from music, and it makes it hard for me to feel satisfied in relationships. That's one of many reasons that I have difficulties being in relationships. But oh yeah, I miss her every day. I think about her every day. Like, I wrote like half these songs about her, and now I gotta go into the studio and work on them as though it doesn't fucking affect me, you know? And I gotta listen to this shit over and over again. I mean, the 2 songs we're doing today were written about her. and I just gotta fucking, just on a loop, you know, hear the shit that I was saying about her like a year ago, you know what I mean? It sucks, but that's the price you pay, you know what I mean? I'd rather if she moved on and, you know, found something better for herself. And I guess I'll do the same thing. And I don't know, me sticking around in Minneapolis isn't helping that, I don't think. And then I gotta go on stage on Friday and sing these fucking songs. It becomes so much real when you're singing it in front of people. I think I'm most afraid of losing my support system, losing the friends I got here. You're not gonna get that same feeling that you would get in a relationship of like comfort and security. Washing dishes or working at a venue, those are the two things that I know how to do, so. And I don't got any like fucking degree or anything. 3 years deep into school, I'm realizing like, damn, I'm gonna have to be here for another 3 years. Like I was failing classes and shit. And I just couldn't do that shit anymore. I just had to get out of my mom's house as soon as I could. So I dropped out, saved up as much money as I could, moved out. That was like 3 years ago. It's a lifestyle, you know, something you adapt to, something you figure out. I worry about it because it's like, I already struggle with just keeping myself sane, working 5 days a week and trying to get this music shit off. And I know it's not going to be any easier out west, you know. I mean, it's probably going to be way harder in LA to get by, to like work enough to live and then work enough to make it as a musician at the same time, you know. Because this shit doesn't stop. It's like kind of fun to have this image of like, you know, eventually I'll just like cross over into music and I won't have to worry about shit like that anymore, but that's just not really the case, you know. I need to get the fuck out of here. I can't do this shit, you know. I work probably like 35 hours a week, and I would say I work on music about, I don't know, it can vary between 10 and 20 hours a week. And it was hard to like be allowed to do anything or go anywhere. I think her kind of approach to parenting was like, if he's just like inside in his room, then he can't do anything dangerous or hurt themselves. It's like a pit in the stomach and a tightness in the throat and a numbness in the hands and I don't know, just this feeling of danger. Before a show, I always get IBS. I always shit a lot. I gotta get shit going. And really, like, the people that, even just within our scene, the people that tend to be really, really grinding at it, you know, they got some fucking pain, you know, you can see that shit when you talk to them. You can hear that shit in their music. I still feel the same sort of angst, like, deep in the pit of my stomach that I did when I was 17, you know? That hasn't really gone away. It's just, I've come to recognize that, like, the people around me aren't my enemy, you know? They're not, like, trying to keep me miserable, you know, or to sabotage me, you know? I've realized that, like, everyone's going through the same shit, and we all have this sort of chip on our shoulder, because we're all getting fucked by the same big cock. I'm not saying all music has to be like dread and pain and trauma, you know, but I do think people tend to be a little more like skeptical about upbeat art or happy art, because it's like this sense of like, how can you be a happy person, you know, like I think everyone's like holding on to a certain little ball of misery, and they think to themselves like, well, how is this other person not miserable like I am deep down, you know? Maybe they're faking it, maybe their art is false or whatever. And that's not the case for everybody, but I don't know, it can be hard to convince people that like you feel good all the time in your art. Yeah, well, the trip was like pretty much a bust. Well, I took a trip out to LA for a week with my neighbor at the time, and like our plan was we were gonna move out there with someone that I was friends with who had moved out, and like they wanted to have a bunch of roommates, so she was asking if I wanted to like move out and live with her in LA. And I was thinking that was gonna be like the big career move, and yeah, we went out there for like a week and it just sucked. I mean, like the trip was really just not good. Kind of dissolved like the friendships that I had going into it. Well, there was just like some arguments and some drama and I just realized like, yo, I'm gonna come out here with like, I don't know anybody, I don't have anybody in my corner except like these folks, and like we've already got drama going on, we're already arguing, like we can't seem to get along, like that's gonna suck. And honestly, the biggest thing about the LA trip, like, cause I was like really seduced by LA, like initially, like it was so like, you know, glitzy and beautiful and sunny. I met this dude who, he was like the only one who gave it to me straight while I was in LA, because he's the only dude I met there who had been living there for like a substantial period of time. He lived there from like high school to now, and he basically told me like, don't move here, dude. Like nobody that lives here wants to be here. Like everyone's trying to get out. And he told me like, even your friend is trying to get out. Like she's just trying to like save up the money to get out of here. That's what happens with a lot of people. They move out to LA and it like costs so much to live there that they can't afford to get out. Like talking to that dude like opened my eyes to the whole thing, you know? Like he was telling me like there's basically two people that live in LA. Like there's newbies and there's like people who are established who are trying to exploit the newbies, and everyone else either got out or is trying to get out. I didn't want to like move out there and get stuck and ripped off, you know? And also like I got back and I started to appreciate Minneapolis a lot more, you know what I mean? Because it's a lot more chill here. And over there it feels like everyone's always trying to sell you something or take advantage of you. Here it's really chill, people mind their business. I mean, the weather kind of sucks, but ultimately like more of like a friendly, unassuming place to be, you know? There's stuff going on here. It's just like way more low key, you know? Like the relationships that I've made in the music scene in the past few years, but especially the past few months, have just been like nobody's trying to get anything out of you, you know? Like nobody's gonna like blow up in the next few months, but that's kind of why it's so chill, you know? Because nobody's trying to like use anyone else as a stepping stone, you know? I actually felt like pretty good. I felt like I dodged a bullet. My neighbor did not feel good. They were super upset that I didn't want to move out there anymore. Because, you know, they were in this mindset of like, oh, I'm stuck in Minnesota. I'm never gonna get out of here. I hate it here. And that made me reflect on my own thing, you know? Before the trip, I was feeling like that. And then coming back, I was like, you know, I'm pretty glad I'm here. You know, like, this is a much more low-key, accepting place to be. But they were really upset about it and kind of ruined our friendship. They said some things to me that were pretty out of pocket after that. We don't really talk anymore, unfortunately. That was actually like a few months after the trip when I got sober. Well, I moved out of the old house because I was buying from my neighbor. Like my neighbor was my dealer at the time. All my roommates were smoking. There was always, you know, ganja, coke. It was always like really easy to get access, but like I started like going to therapy again. I don't know, when I got back, I just started like processing a lot of things. I'm not really sure how to put it. I don't know, I just like got back and started like taking a hard look at where I was at. I was in a place before the trip where it's like, I just need to like escape, and if I like go somewhere else, maybe I can like get away from my problems. And when I came back, he was like, I actually gotta like look at myself and my problems and try to sort it out and try to like face my shit head on. Getting clean was a big part of that. Like I knew I couldn't face those problems if I was still using. Well, I was using music in a similar way that I was using drugs, you know? It's not only in an escape sense, but also like, it's like when you use for long enough, you get into this cycle of you don't even like it anymore, you just feel like you need to do it, you know? You feel sort of this like angst about it, you know what I mean? And I felt the same way about music, you know? I just felt this like angst and this dread. I'm just gonna ramble because I don't know how to like get it out. I came to the realization that like social media was really fucking with my head. But there was this conflict because it was like, well, if I get off social media, then how am I gonna do the music thing? And are my goals gonna work out for music? And how am I gonna have a music career? Like my mental health and getting reconnected with myself and my sobriety are like way more important than having a music career. And I had totally like lost touch with like the fun of making music, the joy of making music, like the reason I made music to begin with, you know? Like when I started making music as a teenager, like what was so fulfilling and cool about that, you know? And it had nothing to do with social media or promoting myself or branding or marketing or you know, moving to LA or, you know, trying to get big, trying to make money, trying to be famous. Like none of that shit mattered, you know? It had nothing to do with it really. So I guess I just realized that like if I wanted to get better, like part of it was like I had to like put into perspective or change like why I was making music and how I was like approaching making music. And like that came back to like how do I put it? It came down to like getting back to like the joy of making music itself rather than like trying to make a commodity out of it or trying to get famous off of it, you know? Now it's like I still want to put out music and I still want to perform music and I still hope my music like reaches people and connects with people and means something to people. But ultimately, like the act of making music is just therapeutic at this point, you know? And it takes a lot of that pressure off. It takes a lot of that edge off, you know? You're not worried anymore about like, if you're making a hit, if you're making an album people will like it doesn't matter really. I work on music like, not necessarily every day, but I would say I have like 2 or 3 solid days of making music a week. And when I say a solid day, I mean like 2 to 6 hours of working on music. I've just been like mostly writing songs for the next project, honestly. It's gonna be like a post-punk goth type thing, you know? I want these mixes to be more rough. I want it to sound more like kind of a rock project or more of an underground type project in the mixing. So let's like not try to polish everything up. Let's not like worry about every little detail and just like get the rough mixes and then stop and call that good and like leave in some imperfections. I don't know, I feel very like determined to finish every project that I start, even if I end up taking it off the internet like a year later, even if I look back and I'm like, oh, I don't like that as much as I did when I was working on it. Like, I just feel compelled to finish what I start always. Well, I don't know, it's kind of complicated. It was like a lot of things, honestly. Like, I mean, part of it was like wanting to escape my circumstances. Part of it was like this pressure to be famous, which was never like really my thing in the first place. That was really more my dad's thing. You know, he was always like pressuring me to get rich and famous, and I mean like his whole philosophy was kind of like, if you don't get famous making music, then like why are you doing it, you know? I'm a lot more like satisfied with the music I've been making lately, because it's like when you have that freedom and there's no pressure, you can do whatever you want, you know? You're not worried about like doing what's trendy or hip or like, you know what I mean? This whole concept of like real artists like walk naked down the street, you know? Real artists like bare everything in their music. You have to like show like all your deepest like insecurities and problems in your music, otherwise it's not like real art. That's just not true. Art is a process, you know? Art is a thing you do. I don't think it has anything to do with like how important or relevant or deep or revealing it is, you know? I think it's just about the love of doing it, you know? It doesn't matter what you're doing or what it looks like or even really like how it comes out. It's just like the love of doing it. If the Goth Cailløu stuff gets like some recognition, I'm able to like play it more shows, that would be cool. I mean, I just want people to like discover it naturally on their own and like relate to it and like it be something for them. You gotta like at least make it accessible for people who want to hear it, you know? So I still release digitally, yeah. My mom was like convinced I was gonna go. She really she was like prepared for me to take off. She was just really surprised, honestly. Yeah, ultimately I'm glad I didn't go. I mean, things have been like better with my mom, especially over that time since I got sober. And I mean, honestly, that was part of it too, of like why I wanted to leave, because like a lot of my relationships were really strained, and like my use and my addiction was like fucking up a lot of my relationships. And getting back and getting sober, it made me like appreciate those people a lot more. Reconnect with the thing that made you fall in love with making music to begin with, and lean into that. All the other shit doesn't matter. Getting famous, moving somewhere else, that's not gonna fill any sort of like hole in you. Honestly, I would say as far as the Minnesota music scene goes, we should try to keep this independent as long as possible. Like since I've gotten back, I've rediscovered my love for hardcore punk music, and like gotten back into like all the hardcore punk bands I was listening to when I was like 12, 13. Like that mindset and that attitude is like what influenced me to want to make music in the first place, and like that shit like drove me at the time, you know, and I think I really lost touch with that. But when you really look back at the hardcore movement, it's like nobody was in that shit to get big. Like none of those bands got big in their time, you know. They were doing it because like they had something that they needed to say, and they felt like there was no other way to say it. I think Minneapolis is in a good position to like stay in that mindset, you know, because we haven't been like targeted by the industry yet, you know. And if enough people popped off here, it might become like Seattle, where it gets targeted by the industry and we kind of lose sight of that. I mean, I was like in such a shitty place. It was just like lots of pessimism. So yeah, it felt kind of weird seeing myself back, hearing my thoughts on shit. I feel like that's inevitable. Like you always look back at yourself and you're like, you know, because you're always like moving on to the next plane or whatever, whether it be up or down, you know. I would hope most people don't just like stay stagnant and look back and go, yeah, I agree with everything that I felt back then. Hope it helped you out. Hope it got some shit off your chest.
Terrified, lids half wide, creeping in the side of my eye. Something's closing in, something's closing in. Paralyzed, lids half wide, mattress wrapped in tight. Something's closing in, something's closing in. Loneliness is an easy sentence when out of vision and full of evidence. I've collected this baggage, saying I deserve the severance. My guilt holds the cord, it pulls the cord, it helps me hold the fort. I wish I hadn't left the ward, back to this blank black drawing board. You're a fly around my head, you're a phantom in my bed. I'm ashamed of everyone I met and leave their hearts instead. I'm a parasite, I'm full of lies, they let me cry at night. My shame is a super strength that makes these feelings only mine. Terrified, lids half wide, creeping in the side of my eye. Something's closing in, something's closing in. Paralyzed, lids half wide, mattress wrapped in tight. Something's closing in, something's closing in. Moving on means letting go. My grip sits a decade froze. I got trauma in my bones, crushing knuckles, keep it close. Keep a hold on the past while I grow. So I'm looking pretty different, but I'm feeling just as old. It's a new year, new friends too. Weed smoke, mask off through. Finally, I fit into something that's not you. Then the summer's at its end, and I'm lonely once again. And I'm making for the past, and I'm losing my defense. Then I'm buzzing from my phone as the coin gets at my chest. When I open up a text saying, can we just be friends?
I just hope my music is in some way a catharsis for somebody. In the same way it's a catharsis for me, you know? Depeche Mode 101, Decline of Western Civilization, all 3 parts. Second one's my favorite. The Woodstock documentary was great. I love the Woodstock doc. It's just called Woodstock. It's like, 6 to 8 hours of Woodstock footage. There's some kind of monster. That's the Metallica one where they were making Saint Anger. That one's awesome. You should really watch it. Cause like it's basically like documenting like the low point in Metallica's career. This was like the absolute just like bottom for them. I mean, Saint Anger turned out to be like the most notoriously bad Metallica album, and that's like really what's so interesting about the documentary is like you get to see them like work through some really personal shit on camera, you know, and like towards the end of it you actually see them like kind of like put the band back together and like resolve some shit.